Citizens of the Dominion, perhaps you wonder why we must take arms, why our sons and daughters are called to the distant lands. The decision to gather our allies and march into the world is a heavy one indeed, but we cannot waste this chance to bring all of Tamriel what she deserves, a stable, civilized, wise and guiding hand. Now, as the Empire rots under its own corruption, our opportunity rises. We, with our ancient wisdom and clear purpose, have the advantage. Together, Aldmeri, Bosmer and Khajiit will fight back the evil roots of the Empire, quiet the unruly hordes of the Evenheart Pact and Daggerfall Covenant, and usher in a shining age of reason, culture and peace. Stand with us.
Hey, what's going on ladies and gentlemen, Vipernixz here, and today we will go deep dive into one of Elder Scrolls' most prominent faction, that is the Aldmeri Dominion. Whether if you are a beginner at Elder Scrolls lore or not, we shall explore all that there is to know about the Dominion and as always speculate and theorize some in-between lores. With that said, I'd like to remind you to like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Queen Ayrenn. The Thalmor are directly descended from the divines who created Nirn, especially the royal family of Alienor. King Hydaelith ruled Somerset skillfully, following Elven ceremoniarchy and the Scrolls of Praxis. Following the Scrolls' guidance, King Hydaelith and Queen Lady Twindane conceived a child named Ayrenn Arana Aldmeri, born on the 5th of the second seed in the year 555 of the Second Era. This date seems to be highly significant in the Aldmeri culture, though not exactly sure why. Ayrenn's birth was said to have been celebrated for 55 days across Somerset, Oridon and Artium. It was foretold that Princess Ayrenn would reflect the restless and turbulent times in which she was born, and so it came to pass. Nimble and quick-witted, she was quick to master the lessons of her tutors, and from an early age she often adopted an unorthodox approach to her schoolwork. In fact, she sometimes became so engrossed in her independent studies that she would disappear for days at times. She would often return from these field trips with unusual knowledge and display remarkable skills. And so, in the Second Era 573, Ayrenn disappeared once again, this time for around 7 years, during which she is said to have traveled throughout most of Tamriel as an adventurer, observing the likes of each province and condition they were in. Rumored tales even tell that she sailed as a first mate with a pirate captain from Anvil, disguised herself as a Dunmer in order to read the Indigo tomes in the ports of Necrom, bested the dervishes of Rihard at their own sword dance, and even outrank Queen Mavian Flamehair of Windhelm in a meat-slamming contest, all of which, according to Headmaster Tannion of the College of Aldmeri Propriety, is just an absurd tale. But I think this makes her journey throughout Tamriel even more impressive, and personally would like to believe this to be true. After a lengthy journey across Tamriel, Ayrenn had witnessed Tamriel as it was, and after her journey home back, she was crowned the Queen of Alienor. She then sought to establish Elven rule all over Tamriel. She believed that with the threats Tamriel was facing, it was in her people's duty to take leadership and responsibility for it. During this time, the Bosmeri and Khajiit people were also facing much of the same problems as the Altmor and were in need of power and an ally. After the news of the imperial city getting overrun by worshippers of Moloch Baal, Queen Ayrenn quickly reached out to other provinces of Valinor and elsewhere for an alliance. This is not the first time they had allied with one another, as many times throughout the history they have made alliances before during the time of strife. Ayrenn knew of the imminent disaster that was to come, and this alliance is what guided them through the next few years during the Plane Meld. Queen Ayrenn is one of the youngest in the history of Aldmeri to be a leader, considering that Mer races typically live quite long. She was merely 28 years old when she took the title of the Queen on 7th of the Frostfall in Second Era. Although she was quite young and inexperienced, her intellect proved otherwise. She was told to be principled and inventive, although she was quite stubborn, which isn't much surprising. As the young queen who had traveled throughout most of Tamriel, Ayrenn had planned to open borders of Somerset Isle to trade, which was opposed by many. One such was King Lady Avinesi of Cimmerian, who opposed Queen's effort to achieve racial equality in Somerset, believing in the supremacy of High Elves due to their direct lineage to the Aedra. She values Altmor traits like stature, golden hue and magic, arguing for cultural preservation and exclusivity. On the other hand, King Lord Andurian, initially against open borders, changes his stance after his son's sacrifice in an alliance war. He values unity and understanding, advocating for connections with other races and learning from their cultures, recognizing the shared impact of the war, and supports the queen in her ruling. Later, in effort to strengthen the elder race and protect the world from the younger race's adverse ruling, collectively the leader of Bosmeri people, King Eredan alongside Silbernar and the Green Lady, and the men of elsewhere assisted Queen Ayrenn as the ruling heads of the first Aldmeri Dominion. The Thalmor. Before the formation of the Dominion, the Thalmor was originally a government organization in service to the Somerset throne, responsible for safeguarding Aldmeri culture and heritage. It is unclear as to what actually they did during this period, but they seem to have been a hybrid between Ministry of Justice and Culture, but were not political party or a secret police yet. This changed completely, however, when the first Aldmeri Dominion was formed. In the Elder Scrolls Online, the Thalmor are basically the equivalent of the federal government. During the Dominion's questline, we learned that Thalmor is focused most entirely on making sure the different races of Dominion get along, and don't really seem to have time and resources to do the sort of foreign works they are supposed to be doing. As such, Thalmor officials aren't the secret police, but they are essentially just government bureaucrats. There also seems to be another faction called the Fist of Thalmor, which is confusingly a completely different thing. It does seem like the Fist of Thalmor are sort of militant arm of the Thalmor, but that's not entirely true either. Apparently, their name is a holdover from the Thalmor's original pre-Dominion role in Altmer society, so despite the name, the Fist of Thalmor aren't actually directly associated with the Thalmor. In reality, Fist of Thalmor are essentially like the Dominion's FBI in some sort, where they are responsible for making sure the subjects of Dominion obey its laws. A Cantor of Cimmerian says in one of his supposed interviews that the Thalmor was originally a bureau responsible for safeguarding the Aldmeri heritage, was expanded by the Queen Ayrenn, and now functions as the executive arm of the Aldmeri Dominion. It consists of representatives from all three of the Dominion's member races, in ratio appropriate to their administrative abilities. The Fist of Thalmor as such is a practical force for accomplishing objectives when said objectives needs stern measures to enforce adherence to Thalmor proclamations. And the Judiciaries are more of a conventional law enforcement officers within that faction, often local in origin and jurisdiction. And it also seems that the Fist of Thalmor were well aware of the confusing name, which is why they had voiced for its change, and thus they were later renamed and known to be the Justiciars, who were finally taken over by the Thalmors during the Fourth Era, giving the party direct control over federal law enforcement, which is what we see in Skyrim, the brand of smug Thalmor Justiciars traveling prisoners here and there.
Walk away, now. I am a Thalmor Justiciar on important business that you are interfering with. We are special envoys of the Aldmeri Dominion, the rightful rulers of Tamriel. If you'd like, I can show you why. If you're smart, you'll walk away.
You're interfering with official Thalmor business. That we are superior to men is an established fact. For example, take this belief in Talos, the ninth divine. Certainly you don't believe such things. Or perhaps there's something you'd like to confess. Incorrect. You can worship whatever gods you like. But Talos is a man, and only a heretic would think otherwise. And so you will die a heretic's death.
There is an analogy I've heard which I don't know if it holds any water, but personally I think it makes sense, which goes like this. Think of the Thalmor as a separate political party, like the Nazi Party or the Communist Party during the Second World War, where they integrated themselves with the state, had their own military and intelligence that coexisted with the state institution, but not everyone was part of that party, and the non-members did not consider it as part of the state. They are basically parasites that take over and pretend the state as their own. The Thalmor, however, didn't seem to become the Thalmor we know from Skyrim until the ideology of veiled inheritance started to become mainstream. The Thalmor we see in Elder Scrolls Online, which is part of the First Dominion, aren't like that yet. They're openly scornful and intolerant of ideas like Aldmeri supremacy, racial purity, and military dictatorship. The Veiled Inheritance, for those who do not know, was a covert group of Aldmeri nationalists formed during Second Era 582 in response to the rise of Queen Ayrenn and the Aldmeri Dominion. The inheritance consisted mainly of ruled-out veterans and youths who disliked Ayrenn due to her unorthodox wandering as a youth. They sought to depose her and appoint their own regent, the Veiled Queen High King Lady Astray of Ayrenn. In general, the first Aldmeri Dominion had a sort of noblesse understanding of their role in Tamriel. They believed that the younger races weren't mature enough yet to guide and rule Tamriel, and believed that the order and stability could only be restored by the so-called elder people, that is the Altmor, Bosmer and Khazid, who lived way longer than men and thus having deeper wisdom. Everything considered, most Altmor during this period did not seem to hate other races, nor did they seem to consider them lesser races, but appeared to think of them like children, well-meaning and eager to grow and find a place in the world, but too young to be trusted with real authority. That's not to defy wholly that the Thalmor weren't racist at all, because they were, but they weren't as extreme as to call for total genocide and racial cleansing, or calling themselves the master races like the 4th era counterparts that we see in Skyrim. That sort of extremist worldview didn't seem to have set in until much later, likely around the time when or after Tiber Septim conquered Somerset and established the Third Empire.
Nords? Me? Be attracted to a Nord? Don't be silly, as if I care about those long, strong beards, rippling muscles, swords as long as can be, and so tall. I bet they could lift me up and slam me against the wall and just... Wait! No! Leave here, citizen!
There were some Altmor who believed the races of men were savages and couldn't be trusted with power, but I can't seem to find anyone beside the Akinter of Semirens that seems to share this opinion, so I'm inclined to believe that it was a niche view even in Dominion during this period. So all in all, the Thalmor was originally in the era of the first Aldmeri Dominion, seemed to basically just mean government or law enforcement, and centuries later was adopted by the ultra-nationalist Thalmor we see in Skyrim, as a way of harkening back to the good old days when the Altmor ruled a significant portion of Tamriel in their own right. The Three Banner Wars and Interregnum. In the world of Tamriel, three powerful alliances are vying for control of Cyrodiil, the fertile heartland and symbolic center of the continent. The empire ruled by the Tharn family is weak, and Empress Regent Sylvia Tharn seeks the aid of Daedra, particularly Molag Bal and the necromancer lord Mani Marco, to bolster her position. The alliance are driven by different motivation. The Daggerfall Covenant, led by High King Emeric, believes that a strong empire brings peace to Tamriel and aims to protect it from the Elven influence. The Avonheart Pact, under the leadership of Almalexia, sees a mystical threat from Molag Bal and aims to confront it by joining forces. The Aldmeri Dominion, led by the Queen Ayrenn, is determined to retake the White Gold Tower from humans and restore the Elven rule back to continent. Now, as for the Three Banner War, also called the Alliance War, was a major conflict involving numerous races and factions that took place across Tamriel during the period of Interregnum. The Interregnum was a period in Second Era of Tamriel's history between the fall of Second Empire and the proclamation of the Third Empire by Tiber Septim. It began when the last of Akabiri potentates, Severin, Korak and all his heirs were murdered in the Second Era 430. The resulting collapse of central authority led to 5 centuries of bickering between racial alliances, small kingdoms and petty states. During this time, Tamriel's provinces reasserted their independence, and the remnants of the Second Empire nominally survived as the Empire of Cyrodiil, or rump state confined to Cyrodiil that was ruled by a succession of warlords. The Interregnum was marked by general decline in living standards across all of Tamriel, and is said to have been days and nights of blood and venom. The years leading up to the war saw a divided Tamriel witnessing a series of conflicts and crises that inspired the different nations of the land to band together into 3 distinct allies that are known as the Daggerfall Covenant, the Avonheart Pact, and the First Aldmeri Dominion. The Daggerfall Covenant, formed in Second Era 566, was a military alliance between the hierarch kingdoms of Camlorn, Daggerfall, Evermore, Sornhelm, and Wayrest, as well as Orsinum during the chaotic Interregnum of the Second Era. The Avonheart Pact, established in Second Era 572, was a military alliance between the great houses of Dres, Yalu, Indorin, and Redoran of Morrowind, and the Kingdom of Eastern Skyrim and the tribes of Shadowfen, as well as Thornmass in Blackmarsh. And finally, the First Aldmeri Dominion, established in Second Era 580, which played as the catalyst to the war. The competing ideologies of these alliances is what set them on a course of war, which began after the formation of the First Aldmeri Dominion. Tensions between the alliances were further exacerbated by the Soul Burst and subsequent military aggression of the Empire of Cyrodiil under Empress Regent Sylvia Tharn. Each alliance saw the opportunity to overthrow the corrupt imperial regime by capturing the imperial city and installing their own emperor on the Ruby Throne, but they also had to deal with the other 2 alliances which furthered the conflict. The armies of the Covenant, the Pact, and the Dominion invaded Cyrodiil, which served as the main threat of the war. However, they also launched attacks against each other's land. The war caused enormous damage to Cyrodiil's towns and cities, and countless civilians were dispatched and resettled throughout Tamriel. The war's ultimate outcome is unknown, but all three alliances as well as the Empire of Cyrodiil had ceased to exist by the 9th century of Second Era. Aldmeri Dominion campaigns. The Dominion launched several campaigns during the Alliance War to get the upper hand similar to the Contenders. These campaigns marked special events in history, such as the Dominion's invasion of Shadowfen. Around Second Era 582, the Aldmeri Dominion sought to pacify the Argonians of the Avonheart Pact through subversive and unconventional methods, invading Shadowfen as part of the Three Banners War, under the command of an Altmer alchemist named Rubitar, the architect of this plan, who planned to sever the link between the Argonians and the East and to cause disarray within the Pact. The Dominion began by secretly replacing the key members of the Pact with impostors who not only looked like their counterpart but also possessed their memories. They orchestrated a series of murders in Stormhold, using these so-called skin stealers designed to sow further discord. Agents of the Pact discovered the Aldmeri plot and tracked the Dominion's forces to the ancient Daedric ruin of Ten Mawr Wolk. It was here that the Pact discovered one of their own vice canons has been replaced by a skin stealer. They also learned that Rubitar had obtained an artifact called the Nemic Egg and had taken it to the Barsebic Aelid ruins of Loricel. It was here that Rubitar planned to sever the link between the East and the eggs at the hatching pools, thus preventing the next generation of Argonians from hatching at all. The failed invasion of Glenumbra. The Aldmeri Dominion aimed to invade Daggerfall Covenant's territory, starting with Glenumbra. They attacked Farwatch Tower on the western shores, using it to communicate and coordinate their forces. The Covenant, overwhelmed, hired a local mercenary to infiltrate the Dominion's command camp to steal information. The mercenary learned that the Dominion awaited orders from the tower's commander to initiate the attack. To thwart them, the Covenant asked the mercenary to extinguish the Firewatch signal fire. After defeating the Dominion's commander, the mercenary succeeded in dousing the fire as well, buying the Covenant time to bring reinforcement and repel the invasion, preventing the Dominion from gaining a foothold. The failed invasion of Alikir's desert. During an archaeological expedition, famed treasure hunter Lady Clarice Laurent discovered a magical portal in Aelid ruins in Alikir Desert. Our assistant unintentionally brought an Aldmeri Dominion army through the portal from another ruin in Grathwood. The Dominion then established a base and prepared to invade. However, with assistance, the Hammerfell managed to push back the Dominion and seal the portal, ending the invasion threat. 3 generations of Aldmeri Dominion. The first Aldmeri Dominion. The Kingdom of Alienor allied with its neighbor to form the first and second Aldmeri Dominion during the Second Era. While the jurisdiction for each incarnation differed, the objective was for the most part and always the same, that is, to reassert Elven dominions all over Tamriel. The first Dominion saw the Somerset Isle allied with the Bosmer of Cameron dynasty and the Khazit of Elsewhere Confederacy in the Elden Accord. To that end, the kingdom fought in the Three Banners War against the Daggerfall Covenant and Avonheart Pact for control of the mainland Tamriel. Eredon Camoran was the Bosmeri king of Valenwood during the mid-Second Era. His reign began after a civil war for sovereignty with his cousin Gelthior Camoran. Later, he was among the leaders that spearheaded the first iteration of Aldmeri Dominion in Second Era 582, as well as part of the original Inner Council of the Thalmor. Second Aldmeri Dominion. The second Aldmeri Dominion is the most overlooked. In this case, the Thalmor were more specifically the provincial government for Valenwood, a congressional Bosmeri chieftain and Aldmeri diplomats, which was dissolved after the Septim conquest. The second Aldmeri Dominion was established in late Second Era in 830 when the Somerset Isle conquered Valenwood following a dispute with the Cameron dynasty. A faction of Bosmer sought peace by offering a part of Valenwood to the Colovian estates. However, the Altmer invaded Valenwood, citing an old treaty stewardship clause. They established the Thalmor to govern Valenwood on behalf of their claimant Cameron Anaximenes. This marked the inception of the second Aldmeri Dominion. The Thalmors consolidated their rule in Valenwood and formed alliances with several rich men, the Maumor of Pandonia and possibly the Elsewhere Confederacy. Tiber Septim's rise led to conflict as the Third Empire expanded, challenging the Dominion's territory. Though the Bosmer attacks subdued, Elven naval strength remained. The confrontation ended with the catastrophic use of the Numidium by Tiber Septim in Second Era 896. The Somerset Isle surrendered, leading to human control over Tamriel. This marked the last era when Elven kingdoms ruled sovereign on the continent, ending the legacy of Direni and Aldmer holdings. An interesting bit of information as to how powerful the Dominion really were. Think of it like this, there were only two provinces that Tiber Septim didn't think he could conquer with conventional forces. One of them was Morrowind, where he came to an agreement with the Tribunal. The other one was the Somerset Isle, where he needed the new medium to crack the Altmer defenses. Of course, a lot of that was defensive, and the Altmer in the field clearly aren't as formidable as that, but this should give us hint as to how formidable they are. The Third Aldmeri Dominion. The Third Aldmeri Dominion was re-established after the Oblivion Crisis, during which the Daedric Prince Maerus Dagon attempted to invade Tamriel. The Dominion's leader saw this as an opportunity in chaos caused by the crisis to revive the Dominion's influence and dominance all over continent. The Dominion's primary goal was and always has been the restoration of Elven supremacy and the reversal of events that led to the decline of Elven rule in Tamriel. The Third Aldmeri Dominion consisted of three core races, the Altmer or the High Elves, the Bosmer or the Wood Elves, and the Khazid. The Khazid's alliance with the Dominion is primarily concerned with the Void Knights. There is some well-deserved suspicion around the Void Knight and the circumstances of the moons disappearing. The Void Knights occurred from 4th Era 98 to 100, during which Norn's two moons, Messer and Secunda, vanished. This caused confusion and fear across Tamriel, playing a significant role that led up to the Great War. The disappearance had a profound impact in Elsewhere, particularly for the Khazid, because the moons are a vital part of their culture and biology, influencing their breeds and birth on the moon's phases. After 2 years, the Thalmor claimed to have restored the moons using unknown dawn magics, and they reappeared. However, it's uncertain whether the Thalmor truly restored the moons or simply exploited the foreknowledge of their return. And the whole occurrence of how or why that even happened is debated as well, because if the Thalmor had foreknowledge of the moon's returns, why didn't the Khazid, considering they are much more concerned with it? The Khazid credited the Thalmor as their saviors for returning the moon, regardless of the truth of the matter. And over the next 15 years, imperial influence in Elsewhere declined, leaving the empire unable to respond effectively to the coup of 4th Era 115. This event dissolved the Elsewhere Confederacy once and for all, and reestablished the ancient kingdoms of Anaquina and Palatine as the client states under the Aldmeri Dominion's control. It's highly unlikely that the moons just disappeared and that the Altmer brought them back just to be nice. It's perfectly reasonable to suspect some kind of foul play on the part of Thalmor to manipulate the Khazid. It is unknown how the Void Knights affected the Khazid or in what scale, but in the worst case scenario, if the Thalmor really did had any part to play on the disappearance and reappearance of the moon, they would indirectly be responsible for a genocide, because without the moons, the Khazid would only have stillborns for 2 years. The Third Aldmeri Dominion's action have had a significant impact on the events of the Elder Scrolls series. One of the most notable instances is their involvement in the Great War against the Third Empire of Tamriel, which resulted in the signing of White Gold Concordat. This treaty imposed harsh terms on Empire, including the ban of Talos worship and the cession of territory to the Dominion. The Dominion also exerted controls over the province they occupied, often imposing their cultural and religious beliefs on the local population. This led to tensions and conflict, particularly with the Norse of Skyrim due to the Dominion's ban on Talos worship.
You have the honor of addressing a member of the Thalmor. Bask in it. As if this craggy wretch of a city could give birth to a superiorly bred mer such as myself. No, I'm not from Markarth. I was sent here to lead the Thalmor's interests in this corner of Skyrim. It's my mission to root out all Talos worship in this city. It's a religious matter. The Thalmor do not recognize Talos as a god. He was only a man, and does not deserve a place in our pantheon. The Empire has agreed to accept our beliefs, and its citizens have a responsibility to cease their heretical worship. You're awfully inquisitive, aren't you? I like that. Perhaps you'd care to solve a little problem I'm having. Aldmeri the Scout. He's old, respected, and I know for a fact that he worships Talos in his home. But the Jarl has been hesitant to call for his arrest. I want you to break into his home and find evidence. We're the ruling body of the Aldmeri Dominion, saviors of Mer, victors of the Great War. The Empire exists because we allow it to exist, and I'm here to make sure the Jarl of Markarth remembers that. The Thalmor saved all of elven kind during the Oblivion Crisis. We've been watching over our lands for 200 years. We refounded the Aldmeri Dominion, an alliance between us and our Bosmer cousins. You might know them from their common name, Wood Elves. We intend to prove the superiority of Mer over man, 1 century at a time.
The Great War. The Great War in Elder Scrolls lore refers to a massive conflict between the Aldmeri Dominion and the Third Empire of Tamriel. It was a pivotal event that had significant implications of the political and cultural landscape of the continent. The Thalmor, the governing body of the Aldmeri Dominion, demanded that worship of Talos, the human god hero and the founder of the Third Empire, also known as Tiber Septim, be banned throughout the empire. They also sought further concession from the empire to weaken its power. Tensions escalated, leading to series of diplomatic disputes, ultimatums and eventually an open conflict. The war began in 4th Era 171 when the Aldmeri Dominion invaded the empire's territories of Hammerfell and Cyrodiil simultaneously. They launched surprise attacks and successfully captured key cities like Leawyn and the Imperial City. The conflict saw intense battles, with Thalmor deploying powerful magics and tactics to challenge the Imperial forces. The Imperial City fell to Dominion and the White Gold Tower was taken over by the Thalmors. The war lasted for 5 years and the Empire eventually managed to mount a counteroffensive. The turning point came at the Battle of the Red Ring, where the Empire under command of General Jonah and the Emperor's son decisively defeated the Aldmeri Dominion's armies. Realizing, however, the tremendous cost of the war and fearing further destruction, both sides eventually agreed to peace negotiations. These negotiations led to the signing of White Gold Concordat in 4th Era 175. The Second Treaty of Stros-Magai, signed in 4th Era 180, ended a long struggle between the Aldmeri Dominion and Hammerfell. After a stalemate, the treaty compelled the Dominion to withdraw its forces from Hammerfell. Critics saw this as evidence that the Dominion could have been defeated earlier. Despite resistance against the Dominion, Hammerfell's relation with the Empire remained tense due to the previous agreements, where the Empire ceded major portion of Hammerfell to the Dominion. The Red Guards felt betrayed by the Empire's action. The treaty left Hammerfell independent but weak. Later, a covert group called the Remnants were tasked with ensuring Dominion's compliance and investigating the treaty's breaches. Afterwards, the Great War had lasting effects on Tamriel's political landscape. It significantly weakened the Empire's influence, leading to internal strife and diminished sense of unity. Many Nords in Skyrim were outraged by the ban on Talos worship, which played a significant role in the tension between Empire and the Stormcloaks during the events of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. The Thalmors' power and influence grew further after the war, and they continued to exert control over the provinces. The events of the Great War and the aftermath serves as a backdrop for conflicts and development in later Elder Scrolls games, shaping the fate of Tamriel in process. What the fuck was Aldmeri Dominion trying to accomplish in the Great War? Some notes about the Somerset Isle from the Infernal City novel states that a tsunami hit the Isles in the early 4th Era. It was likely a result of the fall of Ministry of Truth, which gives us an idea of how absolutely massive the impact was on the Somerset Isle. This probably weakened the Kingdom of Alienor. And another note where it says the goal of Thalmor is the pacification and purification of all Tamriel to bring about a new Merethic era, which aligns to what their motives were from their genesis. While in context to that note, I think initially they wanted to annex Hammerfell and add it to their holdings, and they wanted the Empire to consider on some issues including Talos worship. When a Dominion army marched into Cyrodiil during the war, it was meant to be a diversion tactics, but once they started doing better in Cyrodiil than in Hammer, they switched the focus of the campaign. As for why, you will hear a number of outlandish theories, but the one most based in reality is that they're looking to return to the glory days. Elves used to rule the continent and the Dominion believes that they did a better job of it than the humans. They want to subjugate all the other races and form their own empire after recapturing White Gold, which was built by their ancient cousins, the Elites, long ago. It should be noted that initially the Dominion didn't really intend to march on Cyrodiil and only did so after the success of their invasion and realizing the unpreparedness of the Empire. Prior to invasion, they sent the Empire demands essentially saying, "We want Hammerfell and oh, Talos, you can't worship him no more." I think the Dominion's intention were to secure Hammerfell as a rallying point for more Dominion forces. By securing Hammerfell, it would allow them to access to some of the only passes through Skyrim and High Rock, and give them much closer proximity to the Imperial City. I don't think the Thalmor were ever planning on losing Hammerfell. The White Gold Concordat was simply a well thought out attempt to ruin relationship between Empire and its provinces and shatter the Empire in the long run. Talos only became important because they knew the Nords in Skyrim wouldn't stand for it, especially after fighting a bloody war for the Empire.
All I know is they're the same thing. Psychopaths operate, they're not human, I don't like them, okay? And my very humanity just is just like, yeah, take them on, but you want to fight? You're gonna get one, you inhuman, soulless pieces of trash. I see you real good. And I know our species is stronger than you and better than you. We're gonna beat your ass. Get that through your head.
As of the year of 4th Era 201, in the Elder Scrolls lore, the Thalmor had established a significant presence in Halffingerhold of Skyrim. This presence includes an embassy, positioned on the mountains overlooking Solitude, a fortress called the Northwatch Keep, utilized as a secret detention center for their political prisoners, and an unused building in Solitude, provided by the Empire for the Thalmors' use. Thalmor justiciars and their agent are seen on Skyrim's road, often with Nord prisoners engaging in combat with Stormcloak soldiers. While not initially aggressive, conversing with them reveals their confrontational attitude. Selecting specific dialogues, particularly concerning the worship of Talos, can lead them to become hostile toward the players. There are also Thalmor Death Squad that might haunt the player in wilderness, proclaiming their allegiance as they attack. Ulfric's background involves his capture during the First War against the Empire. Recognizing his value, he was assigned to First Emissary Ayrenn and fed false information about the Imperial city's capture. He was later allowed to escape. Ulfric's usefulness continued after the war, but Markarth incident strained his cooperation. After the Markarth incident in the 4th Era 176, the Empire had to suppress Talos worship in Skyrim to uphold the White Gold Concordat, allowing the Thalmor to operate in the region and punish anyone suspected of worshipping Talos. This persecution significantly contributed to the Stormcloak Rebellion. By 4th Era 201, the Thalmor targeted Talos worshippers, using the Concordat to justify their action from Skyrim Embassy. They captured and imprisoned Nords who questioned their beliefs. Reports suggest that Thalmor justiciars openly displayed hostility towards Nords, with some even advocating for a genocidal agenda. During this time, it was widely believed that the Thalmors were preparing for a potential second attempt at conquering Tamriel. Thalmors aimed to prevent both Stormcloak and Imperial victories in Skyrim, necessitating careful management of any indirect aid to Stormcloaks, furthering the divide from in between, proves this point. Empire and Talos in perspective of the Dominion. Tiber Septim, in his conquering of Somerset Isle, in his egomaniacal efforts to unite Tamriel, made use of what equals as a weapon of mass destruction, the new medium, the Brass God. He used this weapon to break the Somerset Isle, including their capital of Alienor, killing countless elven army and innocent civilians. Elves live much longer than men, and this atrocity could have been within a generation or two of 4th Era Mer. Why this is an important point to discuss is because elves such as Aldmeri and Dunmer have low fertility and conception rates compared to humans, likely due to their much longer lifespan. The birth rate aligns with their extended lifespan to ensure population stability. The linear biological logic supports this theory. The presence of half-elves and Bretons in High Rock suggests that human-elf pairing might have different reproductive dynamics. And to further that, the Altmer society has laws regarding concubines and sexual conduct, but even the Dunmer, who are more sexually active, experience low birth rate and conception difficulties. The Bosmer, with potential mannish blood, might have slightly better birth rates. The Orsimer are an exception due to their altered biology due to the curse of Boethia. The idea that the Altmer have low birth rates is further supported by their focus on perfection and social influences. The Dominion's aspiration to correct past wrongs and perfectionism is rooted in this belief. So in this sense, one Altmer life is much more valuable and rarer than that of men, which is why this event is taken as much more of an atrocity than it seems. Tiber Septim killed soldiers and civilians, tore down government and replaced them with their own. Then after he killed countless with his mechanical terror and warmongering, he apparently becomes divine. What more would want to worship him after that? No wonder the Thalmor want his worship banned. Men have held the throne for majority of the Third Empire. These men who laid waste to the beauty of Somerset Isle and essentially ruled Tamriel. And what have they done with it? There has been tolerated slavery in Morrowind, the interregnum caused by the Tharns, lunatic emperors, incompetent administrators who bankrupted the empire while attempting the invasion of Akavir, who later even sold the Elder Council seats, unrest in Imperial City, annexation of vassals like Roscrea, and the common folks still suffer while the provinces are being exploited by an incompetent government. Men lack the longevity and wisdom to rule. There have been 3 empires and each crumbled. From the average Aldmeri who has seen a lot of this and their parents even more, can you blame them for thinking of us or the other races of men as small children who aren't ready for authority? Summary and retracing of events concerning the Thalmor and the Aldmeri Dominion. Number 1. The Queen Ayrenn formed the first Aldmeri Dominion. Second, the Thalmor were originally a government organization in service to Somerset throne, responsible for safeguarding Aldmeri culture and heritage, which later got authority of the Aldmeri Dominion. Number 3. Three-banner war occurs between the Daggerfall Covenant, the Ebonheart Pact, and the first Aldmeri Dominion during the Interregnum. Number 4. The Aldmeri Dominion launches several failed campaigns to get the upper hand in the war, such as Invasion of Shadowfen, Clenumbra, and Alikir Desert. The second Aldmeri Dominion was established in the late Second Era in 830 when the Somerset Isles conquered Valenwood following a dispute with Cameron dynasty, which later got dissolved after the conquest of Tiber Septim. This marked the last era when Elven kingdoms ruled sovereign on the continent, ending the legacy of Direni and Aldmor holdings. Number 6. The third Aldmeri Dominion was re-established after the Oblivion Crisis, during which the Daedric prince Mairon's Dagon attempted to invade Tamriel. Mysterious occurrence of Void Knights made Elsewhere and Khazit to ally with the Dominion. Number 7. The Great War begins in the 4th Era against the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion, with the invasion of Imperial City by the Dominions. Number 8. The Empire eventually overthrows the Dominion but is severely weakened, leading to the peace negotiation which ended in White Gold Concordat, thus ending the war. Number 9. Empire is severely crippled with the negotiation, with most part of Hammerfell ceded to Dominion, and thus Hammerfell announcing independence. Number 10. Civil war arises in Skyrim between the Empire and the Stormcloak Rebellion led by Ulfric Stormcloak due to the ban of Talos worship. And now, at the end, I have one more thing that is gnawing at my brain. What would Queen Ayrenn think of 4th Era Thalmor or the Aldmeri Dominion? I think there's a fundamental difference between Ayrenn's goal of Elven supremacy and the 3rd Aldmeri Dominion's goal. Ayrenn didn't desire the destruction of men or their cultures, but rather a hierarchy of more being above men, guiding and helping them, much like a parent and a child relationship. Though it was still supremacist, it clashed hard with many Aldmor who wanted something similar to the 3rd Aldmeri Dominion. So here I dare say she'd be opposed of the 3rd Aldmeri Dominion. Ayrenn definitely had some racist beliefs, but she is nowhere near as extremist as the average Thalmor in the 4th Era. Among all these crises, one thing is certain, is that the original ideas of 1st Aldmeri Dominion have been corrupted, squandered and taken to the extreme. The future political landscape of Tamriel is unclear, but one thing is known is that the Aldmeri Dominion will certainly be involved and likely in violent manner once again. Whatever the outcome of civil war may be, many, including myself, believe that a second war of sorts between the Dominion and the Empire is inevitable, given the tension that is already present. And with that, I'd like to end this video, and like always, if I've been unclear or inaccurate in any way, please feel free to let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, hope you had a good time and I'll see you on the next one.